in terms of like matches that people ask me about, it's definitely at the top. And there's obviously like the scoring sequence that was a little nutty.
Right.
But I think it was really important for me that match just because of the year that I was having. My freshman year, I went undefeated. I wrestled Nolf in the finals, and he beat me, pretty convincingly, like I don't know, by a couple takedowns. And then the sophomore year, I come back and I have these bunch of ups and downs. It's very inconsistent. I show up in December and it's like I was going through this issue where I just couldn't score. Like I couldn't get takedowns. And it's like it's almost like a golfer having the yips where you just like, when is this gonna end? And I remember I lost to Larry Early from Old Dominion. I lost to Tyler Berger from Nebraska. That was within like 2 weeks of each other. And so it's like you go a whole year without losing in a regular season. The next year comes around, I'm losing to Larry Early. Then I'm like just fighting for like a dogfight win against Appalachian State, and then Tyler Berger comes into our home arena and he beats me, and it didn't feel that close. And I remember I had to talk with Pat, and I was like, Pat, I'm not sure what's going on. I think I forgot how to wrestle, and he's like, what we can do is go home for Christmas, like go get off the mat for 5 days. Don't even touch the mat. And I was like kind of hesitant at first. I was like, I don't know how that's going to help me with wrestling if I stop wrestling. I need to figure out how to get a takedown. And it turns out it worked. I came back after January and I just kept incrementally getting better. It wasn't like my freshman season where I just went, you know, I didn't have any losses. That sophomore season, I had to really kind of pull myself out of a pretty, dark and a little bit of a hole. And so I fly through the ACCs, look great. ACC tournament looked great. And then the nationals, I get a pretty tough seed. I think I was a fifth seed. And I saw that I would have Nolf in the semis. And it was like, all right, I'm wrestling my best right now. It doesn't quite matter. I could be the 2 seed and meet him in the finals. I'm gonna have to beat him anyways. And I get him in the semis. I knew I was having my best wrestling of the season, and it just wasn't quite enough. And I think you're able to reconcile that because of who he is and what kind of talent he is. And so although I lost, I don't have any regrets because of the way that I was able to kind of bounce back from a tough start in that season and able to regain my footing and get my best wrestling in the end. And I left that tournament with a fourth place finish, but I knew that I was good enough to hang with the best guys. And that's kind of been a struggle in my career, is just beating the best guys in the national tournament. And my move up to 174 now, I think, is a lot of it's just focusing on enjoying this last year. And you're going to have to beat a bunch of really good guys, but I've got 1 year left, and why not give it another shot? That's kind of what it comes down to. And when you wrestle guys like Nolf, you kind of realize, if I can hang with somebody like this, then I can win a lot of matches in this sport. And just trying to figure out that last bit in March has been the struggle for me.
I'm sure it has been, but just from afar, it's like that's maybe one of only a few times I've ever seen Nolf where you thought he was going to lose. Imar obviously had some great scraps with him, but man, awesome match. And I go back and rewatch it all the time. Um, I'm curious for you, Trent, watching Hayden go through that. Were you thinking like, man, what's going on here? Or were you like, what were your thoughts early in the season? Some of those early season struggles.
Yeah, it was. I guess it was kind of it was a little interesting for me because I was redshirting that year.
Okay.
So I'm kind of a utility guy, right? I'm going through like 4 workouts a day. I'm seeing kind of everything that the team is doing. I'm just not in the starting lineup. But I'm seeing, I'm there with Hayden every step of the way, trying to help him out, get what he needs. And it's like he just got done with at the U23 championships. He gets a little injured, but wrestles really good. Comes back, and then you get thrown right into the college season, which isn't easy. And all of a sudden, you're wrestling guys that you had beaten before, and they want to take you out, and they wrestle strategic matches. And I think what's hard about college wrestling is you come onto the scene as a freshman, and you have all this intensity, you have all this stuff that people have never really seen before, and then all of a sudden the next year people are game planning you like crazy. So it's a little bit of a growing pains. I think Hayden will probably admit that that's something that has helped him grow, is people trying to game plan that. But I'd say not even just as a teammate, but as a brother, you have to find a way to just bring him back to equilibrium a little bit. I think we do a good job of helping each other out during losses and stuff, but obviously it's never easy, right? You want answers right away. But in the back of my mind, I knew not even just going into NCAA's, but the whole season that he was going to compete for a national title. That's just the way he was wrestling. I liked the way he matched up against guys, and you have faith in the people that you're surrounded with, and I'd never those losses didn't mean a whole lot to me at that point. I knew he would bounce back and wrestle his best at NCAA's, but I'd say that's one of the challenges is just trying to, when when you're not just brother, but your teammate or someone that you're close to goes through something like that, you're trying to, think of the right words, think of the right things to do. And, a lot of times it's just you taking a little bit of time off and then getting back to the grind of it all.
For sure. No, it's like you don't want to say the wrong thing. You don't want to say too much or too little. Hayden, do you think it was something where you're just putting too much pressure on yourself looking back at it?
I think the whole idea of people game planning you after a whole year of seeing you is tough, especially for guys like Trent and I that, we probably came into our college careers very reliant on underhook offense and just being in that control position. And once you start to have guys that just are going to eliminate that at all costs, like if I'm going to beat you, it's going to have to be with something else. And for me, that was really hard to do. And still to this day, that's what we have to deal with is if we can't score with an underhook, then, you got to figure some things out. And we've gotten much better at that. But, that second year of mine, I'm constantly looking for the stuff that made me so great. And guys are completely changing the way that they wrestle. And I think that was very tough for me. And there was a time where I was like, all right, I feel like like if I'm not getting to my underhook, so this is going to go bad. And it's like, whenever you have that
It's a tough
anxiety, I
thought.
think before a
Yeah,
match, it's a tough thought. And so I really just had to get over that. And I think what I would do is in practice, I would just say, all right, I just can't use an underhook for like this bit. And I'll just tell like the practice partner, do whatever you can at all costs to not let it in. And so once I started to get some more confidence in my other offense, I started to really develop a lefty high C. And off of that, if you are good at lefty high C or just a straight on single, like I've been able to develop, the underhook comes back later in the match. And so I think as the year progressed, that issue kind of started to diminish. And I got way more confidence just being able to, hand fight to get to other attacks. And whenever it's earlier in the year in like November and December, that was kind of tough because I was just wrestling like I did my freshman year whenever people didn't have a whole lot to go off of. And it's one thing to see it like that freshman year, but once you feel it, it's much harder. And so I think that's why I was able to do so well that freshman year is because a lot of people just didn't feel that style.